Welcome to the Growing Up Bananas podcast, where we dissect the perks and tribulations of being bananas.
It's hard being yellow when I feel so white.
My name is Ethan. I've got Alex and Amber Rose sitting next to me, and in many ways, I'm sitting next to them. How are we today, guys?
Yeah, good. Good.
Great.
We're excited to be on the podcast. First podcast for us, so a bit nervous.
You guys will be fine.
Some Asians can be real showy,
Yeah.
with their money, and they kind of judge success with the clothes that you wear or, the car that you drive. And so Dad didn't like that.
It's somewhat awkward for me because, I'm an outsider, and Nui and Andrew are the ones that aren't actually family, and then I'm married into that. So I'm an outsider.
Yeah, there was a time growing up, and even my parents were like, are you ashamed to be Asian?
Wow.
Are you, you don't want to speak Vietnamese or, things like that. You that kind of affects you.
My sister, growing up, my older sister, she was always obsessed with Asians.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Be sure to check out Podcast of the Month, Terror Tuesday, and The Graveyard Club.
So, look, I'm obviously very fortunate today to be joined by the power couple of Amber Rose and Alex. Amber Rose has a really cool lifestyle fashion page at Living for White, so please check her out.
Living with white.
Living with White, sorry. Also check out Alex at Just Nui. He's either the real talent behind the camera or he's just stealing some quality content of Amber Rose. You guys can be the judge of that. So, Amber Rose, do you consider Alex a banana?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He is definitely, I feel like, getting less Asian as he gets older. But have always felt like he was very
Australian?
no, you're very Asian in Australia. But I didn't have much to do with the Asian culture before I met Nui.
Okay.
So to me, anything would have been different. Anything would have felt he was Asian because of his upbringing and his little quirks. But the more I get to know him, the more I know that he's actually not that Asian compared to some people around us, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Even your
For
brother.
sure. Yeah, for sure. And he's definitely way more Asian than me. So
Yeah, and obviously we'll get into the little ticks and things that make you somewhat Asian as we go. I guess let's take it from the start then. Your early life then. So tell us family, what's your background, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I've got a pretty standard family life to most Asians whose family immigrated, I would say. Dad owned a Chinese restaurant like most families. And yeah, family immigrated back in the 70s. So I think it's pretty standard that way. But the only difference is Dad and Mum actually decided instead of moving to Brisbane where most Asian kind of moved to, they actually moved to the Sunshine Coast.
Yep.
And so that kind of changed up my whole upbringing, and that's why I guess most Asians in Brisbane or family friends that do live in Brisbane would call me a banana, is because I guess I grew up on the Sunshine Coast, and so that was kind of the only difference. Everything else would be very similar, but I think it's just the geographical location of where I grew up would be the difference.
Do you know if that was a conscious decision? Did they know that was going to be the impact, that there weren't going to be a lot of Asians there, or was it just land wherever you can type of deal?
Don't know. I spoke to Dad about that recently, and he kind of said that he didn't like the Asian culture in a sense. Some Asians can be real showy, with their money, and they kind of judge success with the clothes that you wear or, the car that you drive. And so Dad didn't like that. Had heaps of Asian family and friends around, but just didn't want to be around that culture. So he decided to move to the Sunshine Coast. But I don't know if that was the sole reason at the start, but that's kind of what he mentioned recently to me when I asked.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say there's probably a few factors there, but like we're talking a little bit off camera, we both grew up in predominantly white situations, and that's probably shaped our bananaisms, you want to call it. Ambrose, you touched on it at the start there. You said you didn't really grow up around a lot of non-white people.
Yeah.
I guess what was your upbringing like? Was it again fairly standard or?
Fairly standard in the sense of community around me. I didn't grow up a Christian, and I'm a Christian now. I come from a broken family, so my parents are split. I have 2 sisters, so I kind of just grew up in like an all-girls family, my mum and my 2 sisters and I.
Yeah.
And my community was just like school. I don't really remember having any Asians in my grade, to be honest.
Yeah, at all. Not
At
even
all.
friends, just not.
Yeah, I don't. And I had a big grade. I had about 240 people in my grade alone, and I don't remember any Asians in that group of people. So, yeah, my upbringing was pretty standard and just not very culture filled, I'd say. I didn't travel very much because it was just my sisters, my mum and I, really. So we didn't have the opportunity to really travel. So it just wasn't around me.
Yeah.
It's kind of the sunny coast, eh? There's not too many Asians. I guess back in the day, like even when I went to school, there was only, I think, one other Asian in my grade.
Yeah.
Not in your grade, but in the school.
Yeah, there was pretty much only like 2-3 Asians like in the whole school. So you kind of feel, I guess, left out, or you feel like you're different growing up. And I remember feeling that way, feeling different growing up, and kind of wanting to be white or wanting to be Australian, you know. And yeah, there was a time growing up, and like even my parents were like, you know, are you ashamed to be Asian? Like, are you? You know, you don't want to speak Vietnamese, or, you know, things like that. You that kind of affects you growing up. You know, you want to fit in. And yeah, I think that was a big challenge growing up in that kind of situation.
I can 100% relate. Similar feelings, exact the same thing where, you know, it's hard enough just trying to be a teen. Yeah. And then you throw in that you are a very, very stark minority. Trying to navigate all that can definitely warp the way you feel, but you know, as you get older, you get confident, you get to know yourself a bit better. For sure. Those sorts of things. So I know, sort of family friends wise, you're obviously a family friend of my wife's and you know, brother-in-laws. So you had them around. Yep. Other than that, did you have many other Asian friends or?
No, none. Anything? Literally none. Yeah. It's just the family and friends that my parents made. They're kind of the only, you know, Asian friends that I did have, and it was great. Like, you know, we clicked. We had so much in common, so we obviously clicked straight away when we met. When I think we were, you know, 6 or 7 years old. Yeah. So it's been quite a few years now. But yeah, they're like, I would say they would be like the closest friendships that I have. You know, they're more like family, just because we can relate so much, and we have so much in common. We got such a deep friendship with our family friends.
And then family-wise, sorry, just keep peppering you here, but family-wise, was it just your parents? Did you have any cousins or anything?
Yeah, we got cousins, but with the whole Asian culture, it's different to Australian culture. I found, like, Asian culture, there's more of a hierarchy, you know, so you never really, well, for me personally, I don't know about you, but you know, we never really had that relationship with uncles because they were always, you know, at the level of the parents, you know, and same with like
nothing but respect.
Yeah, it's nothing like, so you can't really have a decent conversation or a relationship with them because they're always hanging out, you know, with your dad or your mum, and even at family gatherings, it'd be the kids just hanging out, and then the adults were hanging out, and then, you know, when we eat, there'd be kids table, and then there'd be an adults table. And so, yeah, the relationship with cousins and uncles, you know, it's not as close, I don't find, compared to Australians, because you can have that, you know, it's more of a relational and a friendship in a sense, like with uncles and aunties. I just never got that in I guess, our culture.
Yeah, you can call your white uncle by his
Yeah,
first name, and it's all good.
yeah.
Get rid of
Yeah.
that.
You don't have to bow every time you enter the house.
And then Ambrose, for you then, so did you have many, like how big was your extended family? I know you said it was just yourselves, like your mum, your sister.
Yeah, I'd say growing up, we didn't really have much extended family around us. Most of our family is back in New South Wales.
Yep.
And I think that meant that we grew up pretty secluded. And I wouldn't say we're close to our extended family. So even now, I struggle with like that relationship going further than your immediate family sometimes, because I'm just so used to your immediate family being the family and then everyone else is kind of distant. And yeah, I have family friends who are like auntie and uncles and cousins, and they're probably our closest people to us. But yeah, we didn't grow up with much family around. It was more so just like friends.
And then what's it like when you come to like just our house, for example, and there's like 70 people and they're all related?
It's actually amazing. Like for me, it's really special. And I think I probably hound Nui a lot to like try and be there at family gatherings and whatnot when we're invited, because I didn't have it and I want Haven to have it.
Yeah.
And so it's somewhat awkward for me because like I'm an outsider, even more so than like some of the people that come to the gathering are actually all family.
Yeah.
And Nui and Andrew are the ones that aren't actually family. And then I'm married into that. So I'm an outsider.
Yeah.
But I still always want to be there because to me, you guys are all family. Like to Nui, you've always been family. And it means that Haven gets to grow up with that huge chaos that I never had.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Yeah, it's really cool to like that you were able to see you guys the last few years. So may that continue. And
Yeah.
like it will be cool because I grew up in a massive extended family in South Africa. So my mum was one of 9.
Wow.
And every person had 3-4 kids.
Yeah.
So I think I've got over 30 first cousins.
Wow. That's insane.
That's crazy.
And then, flip it to the other side, you talk to like some of my white friends, they're like, yeah, I've got one cousin.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's totally different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's different. And it's like every time Amber goes to these gatherings, it's kind of like a shock, right? Because there's so many people and it's hard to remember names.
Whenever someone comes, I just like, don't even try. Like, I don't even.
You just call them
ask them
uncles
to say something.
or friend or...
yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a shock for me because there's just a lot of people. But that's the cool thing about immigrant families is there's definitely that family like close knit that values and everyone does try to stick together as much as they can.
Yeah.
So that is
special because it's not an Australian culture.
Yeah.
In my experience, that's not something we value.
Yeah.
But it is something that the Asian community values, and it's really special.
Yeah. So when did you guys meet?
We met 7 years ago. Yeah, it would be about 7 years ago.
2017.
Yeah, she was 17.
I was 17.
That's bad.
Nice. And we don't have to go into every detail, but like how did you guys meet?
Yeah, Amber tells the story about it.
We met 3 times before he remembered who I was the 4th time.
Yeah, I was in my own world back then.
We met at church.
Yeah.
Nui was a part of a church for many years, and then I found God and went to the same church that Nui was going to for the first time. And over the course of maybe the first 6 months that I was at church, Nui and I met a few different times, and he kept forgetting me, so he kept trying to introduce himself to me. Like,
It's all psychological.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's paid off. So.
Yeah.
no, but I did not like him. I thought he was the most arrogant person because I was like, come on, we've done this before. And he wasn't doing it to flirt. He was doing it like, oh, hi. And then he would walk away. Like, he could not care less. And I thought he was so arrogant. Definitely not the type of guy that I foresaw myself with. And I was not the type of girl that he was looking for. Yeah, we were just polar opposites.
So how did it go from that to you thinking he's the total opposite, you not even remembering her, to then actually coming together and starting to talk a bit more?
Yeah, I think, obviously, I always thought, she was attractive when I did notice her. And I think that was it. Hey, like we met, I think it was at Mooloolaba one time, and that's kind of when I did remember her. I don't know. She says, like, I met her twice before that, but I don't remember that. But yeah, where did we find common ground? I think we both we didn't. You had a dog, and I really did love dogs, so I said, hey, let's take the dog out for a walk, and then that was kind of the first day. We took the dog out for a walk on the beach, and just sat on the beach for hours just talking.
Oh, nice, right?
So, and that's kind of where it started.
And you guys obviously had that common ground of you both were into your faith.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, I was at church. I've been serving at church for I think 6 years before I met you, and was like a brand new Christian. So yeah, that's
And
kind of
you were looking for a pastor.
yeah. I was kind of looking for someone that was like fully into church and serving God and didn't think I'd ever marry or even date like a fresh Christian. I don't know why, but that was kind of my thinking back then. But it's been the best ever since.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely dive a bit deeper into your faith because I'm from a very religious family too. I probably lost touch with a few things. Which, would like to sort of revisit, but
Dude, let me help you, bro.
we'll get into that. You sort of spoke about it, Alex. That you sort of wanted someone who wasn't necessarily just a fresh Christian, someone maybe who knew a bit more about the practices and things like that.
Yeah.
In terms of when you guys were young then, did you see yourselves with a particular person? Because we've done this with a few of the other guests. I'll go first. And look, I always thought I was going to marry a white person.
Right.
Yeah. I could.
My whole life. Alex is the first Asian person I've ever dated.
Crazy.
And we're married. So
yeah, wow.
And there's obviously reasons why. It's media, it's who you're around. I mean, we both went to schools where it's only white people.
Exactly.
So either if you want to go first, what was it like when you were younger? Did you envision yourself with,
I always knew, knew I'd marry an Australian.
Yeah.
Same thing, like, because there's no Asians on the Sunshine Coast, right? So, all I guess the women that you grow up with, they're all white, and all on TV as well, as you said, they're all white girls. So in my mind, I was like, I'm definitely going to marry a white person, and that was kind of what I wanted, right? So yeah, and seeing, I guess, family friends all date Asian people, they kind of were like, do you find Asians attractive, or and I was like, not really.
Yeah, which is it's fair.
Yeah. And so I always knew, and kind of always wanted half caste babies. So
it's working out so far. Yeah. He's a good looking boy.
He's a cutie.
Yeah.
What about you, Amber? Did you have any visions when you were younger?
No, I wouldn't say I did have any visions of what I wanted to end up with, or who I wanted to end up with, should I say. But I definitely never had any thoughts of dating an Asian.
Yeah.
Like, I had dated...
Yeah, your sister always said she would date.
Yeah, my sister, growing up, my older sister, she was always obsessed with Asians. And it was always like, I want to date an Asian, I want to marry an Asian. And I just never touched that territory. Like, I never really thought about it. And I had a boyfriend in high school for like 5 years. And he's really the only person I've ever dated. So he was white. He was pretty much the most Australian person you could.
Wasn't he like 6'2"? Had like 6-pack.
Okay. So he was really my only like type, and he was the standard because that's what I knew.
Yep.
And then I wouldn't say I was super attracted to Nui when I first met him. I also had a bit of a grudge against him. So like, there was no spark. Yeah, there was no spark, and until like one day I saw him serving on, like, playing guitar on stage, and I just remember God being like, give him a shot. And then instantly, like, attraction hit.
Yeah, wow.
And then honestly, I'll tell you now, probably only stick to Asians. I'm really attracted to Asian men now. Like that is since marrying Nui. Like I watch K-dramas.
Must be doing something right.
Yeah, like
It's the K-dramas, trust me.
I watch K-dramas. I listen to Korean music. I just
BTS.
No, it's not. But like, yeah, Asian men I find really attractive, and I don't really look twice to an Australian guy. You know,
I mean, you are married to him, so
yeah. So you would hope that I.
But no, it's interesting that's kind of the
It's
psychological
totally
change.
flipped. I did not think about it, but I never really had a type either growing up. Someone, your friends go, "What's your type?" And I'd always be like, "I don't have a type." Like if I fall in love with someone, no matter like who they are, I fall in love with them.
Well, a 15 or 16-year-old guy is whatever girl likes him back, or whatever person likes him back. That's your type.
Yeah, exactly.
Take whatever you can get at that point. And just on your sister, then, did you ever talk to her and ask her why? What is the attraction? Was it the aesthetic? Was it the culture?
I think it's the aesthetic. I think.
But she had a Asian best friend growing up, right?
Yeah, her best friend was Japanese.
Yeah, so
girl.
that probably a girl.
Yeah. She
but
did,
that probably and she probably was exposed to.
Watching some J dramas.
Yeah, she was probably exposed to it more than I was, and I know that she was a little like. When I started dating Nui, because she was like, he's Asian. Like, what if I liked him? Yeah, she was kind of like, hold on, I should get dibs. He's Asian. Like, I was.
So they were fighting over me at the start.
But she's actually living in South Korea now, so she's like charging.
Yeah, she's living it up.
Hidden candy shop.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, no, I just think it was just her type.
Yeah, I think definitely. Yeah, we sort of touched on it. It's the dramas, it's the music. Just I think across the board, like Asian culture is more popular. Is not the word, but it's just more ingrained.
Yeah.
Before you'd be hard to find a bloody sushi shop.
Yeah.
Now everywhere you go, there's Asian food, and
sure.
it's pretty standard now. I think. So then, just jumping back to the religion. So for you guys, you obviously young adults with trying to start a family, trying to make your lives for yourself. How did you guys, or at the start, how did you prioritize your faith? Because I know, and just kind of a bit of commentary on it, I find a lot of people our age, and I'm very grossly generalizing, is we don't really care about much other than ourselves. So it's how can I make money? How can I spend my time? How can I enjoy my life?
Right.
Whereas it's really refreshing to hear that you guys have embraced from a long time too. Like I said, 7-8 years that you've been together. Plus the time before. I mean, you can start because you're obviously in it first. Is it a family introduction?
I think the family religion kind of growing up was, I think most Asian families would be Buddhist, or Vietnamese was Buddhist. So we grew up Buddhist, and I remember, the weekends or even during the week, like my parents would take us to the temple, and they would help out. They would donate food, donate money to the temple each week, and we would just play around the temple, right? So that was kind of my childhood exposure to religion. And my mum was a really into Buddhism, and that's kind of what we grew up with. And I think we just saw how devoted my parents were, and that kind of impressed on me and my brother and my sister, and so we grew up as a Buddhist, and it wasn't until we've got a nana and pop that used to babysit us because my parents were obviously running Chinese restaurants, and we would go to their house every Christmas, and they're not related to us, but we just call them nana and pop because they're super close. And so me and my brother would go to their house every Christmas, and spend Christmas with them. Give mum and dad time to work on the restaurant because Christmas is always their busiest time. And so we would be looked after every Christmas, and my pop is a Christian, and that is kind of where we got the exposure to God and Jesus through my pop. And so every time we would go over to their house at Christmas, he would just share a little bit about Jesus and God each time, right? And yeah, just growing up through the years and going there every Christmas. He would just sow seeds, and it wasn't until we were like 11 or 12 that we were like, wow, even though we're Buddhists, like, Jesus actually did so much for us. Like, he died on the cross for us, and he gave us this amazing life. And yeah, it was I guess a life-changing moment for me and my brother, because we made that decision to follow Christ then, and it was totally different to I guess what Buddhists believe, right? Buddhists believe like, hey, we need to do so much to get closer to Buddha. We need to throw away everything so we can get clarity in our mind to become nothing and get closer to Buddha. Whereas Christianity is like, Jesus has done everything for us, right? And so that's kind of where it impacted my life, and we made the decision to follow Christ. Got your question?
No, that's perfect, man. So yeah, just on how you got there, and then
yeah.
So I didn't know your mum that well.
Yeah.
But obviously they were quite heavily into the Buddhism.
Yeah.
How did that sort of fit with them?
I think my mum was, obviously, when, we made the decision to follow Christ, I think that really hurt mum because she wanted us to be Buddhist. But at the same time, as a parent, she was super understanding and super, I guess, she was just able to let us make our own decision, because she understood that it's such a personal decision, and it shapes the rest of our life, right? So even though it kind of hurt mum, she gave us that freedom to make our own choice. And yeah, ever since then, we've been serving in church and have really prioritized church in our lives. And as you said before, a lot of the people nowadays, our age especially, they kind of focus on themselves, right? And we just found, our lives have just been so much more, our lives are bigger and better because we serve the church and serve God and serve other people, right? And that's kind of been like the focus of our lives, is to serve people.
Yeah. No, that's great, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Many more follow-ups, but Amber, for you, how did you, because like you said, you weren't from a religious family, you sort of got into it a bit later in life. What was your journey like?
My journey was actually pretty easy. I think for me, becoming a Christian was quite natural, because my first church that we went into was Pentecostal, and a Pentecostal church is quite progressive and
Spiritual.
Very spiritual and has a lot of young adults. And so when I came to church, and it wasn't anything tragic really that brought me to church. I had trauma growing up because of my father.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of hurt because of past relationships and whatnot. And that's kind of what led me to church, because it was kind of a safe place that I could see that people who, the biggest one for me was I saw a group of people who didn't drink alcohol. And I don't drink alcohol. And it's not a religious thing. I have an alcoholic father. So growing up, I didn't drink alcohol, and all my friends did in school. And I was quite lucky because people didn't try and pressure me, but it definitely set me apart, and I didn't like to be around that environment. And so when I found this group of people in this church, it was like the first thing that drew me in was people weren't drinking. They could party and they didn't have to have alcohol at it. So I was able to get connected into a church that young adults just hung out all the time, and I didn't have a lot of judgment about my past and the fact that I didn't grow up a Christian and I had a past. I could go into this church that just welcomed you and kind of consumed you. Some would say in a healthy way, some would say in an unhealthy way. I think it's still trying to balance at the moment, but it consumes you as a young adult sometimes, and it really locks you in, and it can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. And for me, it was a good thing. It locked me in. I met a lot of really good people, and on the journey of finding those friends, I found God as well. And I often say that I'm the Christian I am today because I met Nui. Like he was many years. It's totally true. And I say it any chance I get because he was many years ahead of me, was probably a little bit obnoxiously looking for someone who was like just wanted to preach God's gospel at every moment.
Yeah.
And I'm not that person. Never have been, never will be. But he was looking for someone that was so secure and on fire and diving into God. And when we came together, he kind of, prioritized being generous. So I learned the value of being generous as a Christian and prioritized, praying. So I learned the benefits of praying and things that he instilled in me kind of just made me into a better person. And then that's kind of how we kind of prioritize God because we both bounce off each other.
Yeah.
Gives you that sort of base when you have a dilemma or something where you need to make a decision.
Yep.
You know which way you should go, right? Gives you that sort of compass, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, and if one of us is too far left, the other one can kind of bring us back a little or pull us up a little. We kind of can work out what we need to do to get back. I don't know.
You mentioned just before that it can consume you in a good and a bad way. What would you say? And this is your opinion, so you're not basing it off anything. It's your opinion. What would you say is the bad ways that it can consume someone?
The bad ways it can consume someone is it becomes like they live and breathe it in a way that doesn't allow them to kind of see or respect anything outside of it.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where they notice it and it's, it either breaks them or makes them. A lot of people in our time we've seen come to know God and come into a church and get all consumed and it's great. And then something happens. Maybe they get offended by something that's said in church or their family members go, you're a part of a cult. I've seen all different things happen. And then they kind of look at church in a negative light and then they leave God altogether because they're like, oh, this is terrible, rather than balancing out. Maybe they just need to step back a little and focus on God rather than the church, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because so I grew up in a Catholic family. Like I reckon probably up to the age of 16, 17, I probably missed mass twice.
Yeah, wow.
My whole life, maybe.
Yeah, wow.
Probably not even. So it was literally you go or
You're
you
not going.
You go.
Yeah.
You go. So where I was going to come into your story, and you're 100% on it, is where it gets away from you receiving your spiritual guidance or message, and then it becomes, I'm more devout than this person. I'm going to do more for the church than this person.
For sure.
And then it does become a bit consuming.
Yeah, it's more like an obligation instead of like a relationship.
Yeah, and you lose your relationship with God at that point. And we've experienced it firsthand. So that's why I think I have a perspective that I can see it in other people's lives from an outside point, because we were those people. We got all consumed. We put church, even pastors, above God and faith. And that's where it can get really tricky, because you start to not go directly to God for your guidance. You go to a person, and where they can be the best people on the planet, but they're not God.
Yep.
And you've got to remember who your faith is in. It's like a...
Yeah, remember why you're there. You're not there to try and do
impress
more than the next
people.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important message, because I think a lot of people, even if it's just in a work environment, a sports team, whatever it might be, don't lose kind of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Probably a bad example of it. And then I was just going to say, last one on the religious side, and again, thanks for sharing that. For those who just can't prioritize, and it's not important to them, what would you guys say to them? Because obviously you guys have been so enriched. You found each other. You know, you guys seem like some of the happier people that I've met.
Yeah. I don't think, I guess, going to church, takes too much time, right? It's only an hour and a half a week, but it puts so much in our lives, right? It blesses us so much because, one, hey, you get fed the word of God, right? And you get, amazing worship, and it takes your perspective or your focus away from, hey, what's happened in the week, and then, you put your focus on God, so all the stresses you can leave behind. So yeah, it's not too much of a impact on our lives in time wise, but
yeah. So basically, for you, because it is a priority, it doesn't feel like you're having to put yourself out.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, sorry, you get involved or exposed to an amazing community, and that's probably like one of the biggest things, because life's definitely better with people, right? Even the whole parenting journey, it's super hard, doing it by yourself, and people say that cliche saying, it takes a village to raise a baby or raise a kid. That's in our lives we found that kind of true, right? Because it is tough, it is hard to do by yourself, and the church has been amazing. It's blessed us because it, we're exposed to an amazing community of people that, really want to serve others, and they've really blessed us, and we do life with them each week. So I don't think it's like it really affects us time wise. I think there's more benefits to it than, our time.
Yeah, and I'd probably say that if it's a thought that you're thinking, that the main thing would be to find a church that you could go to that has a community that doesn't put pressure on you, that lets you work out your journey with God on your own time. If you find the right church for you, you'll know that there aren't pressures of being a Christian, that God, like Jesus died on the cross so that we didn't have to abide by the laws the way we did before Jesus died. So the reason that we have, Jesus dying on the cross is because he died for our sins. We now just get to focus on our relationship with God, and everything else will fall into place. And if you're focused on how much effort it is to be a Christian, then you need to rearrange your thinking, because it's not about effort to be a Christian. It's just about having a relationship with God. And that can be from your bedroom. You don't even need to start that by going to church, Church is just a benefit of a community that is like-minded people.
And at the end of the day, a lot of people go to church for different things, right? Some people just go because they like seeing the people, hanging out with people, and that's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. No.
One of the guys I had on the podcast, he's in Hindu, and he goes to the temple. He said it started off purely because all his childhood friends were there, and now they still go every time, and that's fine.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's fine. Sure. And if that is what's going to bring you closer to God, then that's amazing.
For sure.
Yeah. So I'll lighten it up a fraction. I did this, and this was actually because Anthony, AFAM, my brother-in-law, Alex's brother, they got ordained by this stupid online website called the Universal Life Church.
No way. I didn't know that.
And he's like, chuck it on your LinkedIn, just do it. So anyway, I did it. Long story short, I did my first wedding about a month ago.
No way.
Maybe more.
What?
Only because it was friends. They were already married.
Yeah.
So it was purely just a ceremony.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm technically ordained. I'll do it. So fast forward, I had to write a speech.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to just be a typical, okay.
Yeah.
He met her, he loved her, they got together, be good to each other. I wanted to actually think about, okay, well, why are people still getting married?
Right.
Because we spoke about it roughly before. A lot of people our age just aren't getting married, whether it's by choice, whether it's not by choice. It's just not really happening. And then that got me thinking, it's like, well, why are we still doing it?
Right.
So I'll read you a quick passage that I wrote. And I 100% wrote this myself. I wasted so many hours during work, but I think it came out okay. And basically the line was, we hold up marriage as a tradition, and like many other traditions, these change over time. Just because the times change doesn't mean that certain values or principles become obsolete. Just like marriage, is it necessary? Why do we keep doing it? And it got me thinking. I'm like, well, why are we doing it? So putting it back to you guys. Firstly, what's the thoughts on marriage in today's society?
Yeah.
And then secondly, why did you guys end up wanting to get married?
Yeah. I definitely, obviously, the statistics say that, marriage is ending and people aren't getting married these days because I guess legally there's probably no benefit, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of what society's happening today. There's not much power in marriage these days, and people say, hey, it's an old tradition or it's a dated tradition. But yeah, and if it's only, I guess, the legal side of things, then yeah, they're probably right. But for us, obviously we're Christians, so there's a spiritual side to it. And, the Bible says, hey, the marriage is a covenant, right? It's a sacred covenant. And we decided to get married. And, when we did get married, we made a covenant to each other. And, those vows that you say, when you do get married, like for better, for worse, and for richer, for poorer, they're the covenants that we're making between each other and between God. And so that's kind of the reason why, we got married. And I think it's, I think it's super important, right? Because there have been tough times and, a lot of fights in a marriage, right?
There should be.
Yeah. And, we always come back to, I guess the vows that we made, right?
Yeah.
And they're the things that have actually held us together and kept us from breaking up or, falling apart, right? And I think, the reason why there's so many marriages breaking up is because they don't, take those vows seriously, or there's not a weight on it, or, they don't really understand why or remember why they got married. And even society now, like, with I guess, social media and, fast food, you can kind of get everything that you want so quickly, it's a consumer's world, right? And they're kind of taking that aspect with relationships as well,
Yeah, you don't like your table, throw it away, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. If your wife and you are fighting and it's not working out, then get a new one.
Yeah. Just before Amber goes, I was going to say, and then a lot of the comments that I hear is, why? What's the point?
Yeah.
Why get married? And I'm like, well, why do anything?
Yeah.
If you're going to live your life like that. There's certain, just because it's an old habit, it's an old tradition. Like, not talking just about marriage, but a lot of things doesn't mean that it's dated or wrong.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes to what we talked about before, where people are probably just worrying less about the wrong things or worrying less about the right things, rather.
I think they're also thinking of the money aspect because it is expensive.
It's very expensive. But yeah, what about you, Amber? So marriage, does it still hold a place in, I mean, you're married, so.
I'm married. I do think that marriage is from the Bible, so Christians hold a greater value to marriage than people who don't have that faith.
Yep.
But in saying that, before I was a Christian, I always knew I wanted to get married, and I always had that desire to be with one person for the rest of my life and grow old with someone. And I guess that's a bit of me having God in my life before I even knew it. I had those kind of values before I knew God. But since becoming a Christian, I'd say we needed to get married, because it was a standard of our relationship. It has been what's kept us together. Absolutely. There have been times where, it's easier, it feels easier that you can just walk away.
Yeah, for sure.
And if we weren't married, you never know, you probably would. But when you've had those vows and you've made that commitment to not just yourselves, but to God and in front of your family and friends, which is so important because everyone that really came to your wedding should be those people that are supporting you guys to actually stay together. They're witnesses. So you'd hope that, the people that are surrounding you really value your marriage as well.
Yeah.
So to us, it's so important to value getting married so that you can actually stand the test of time
For sure.
and stay with someone that you love
Yeah.
Until you're old and create a family with them, because that's what kids need. They need a family, a whole family. And that's really what we wanted to give our kids. And marriage helps that in a lot of ways, every way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the direction I took the second half of my wedding speech was, look, a lot of times people are just together because they don't want to be lonely. That's okay. But at the end of the day, you have someone who is going to be with you through the good, the bad. It's not necessary anymore, but everyone needs that sort of strength, that thing that they can rely on
Yeah.
For sure.
when life gets tough and when life's good. You want to enjoy it with people you care about. And it's tough. There are going to be ups and downs, and we're young couples. We all face it,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
and that's something that hopefully we can try to take seriously.
Yeah. And you'd hope that you're not getting married to someone that you aren't willing to do the ups and downs with. You know, if you're getting married and you're making that commitment, make sure that you're ready for it.
Yep.
That's important too.
So then, speaking about your wedding, how much intervention or
Jeez Louise.
opinion was passed by parents?
Yeah.
I know Asian parents, they'll always have wedding features.
Yeah, I feel like I've got pretty laid back parents, and they're not like your traditional Asian parents. So I think they gave us a lot of freedom, but compared to what I've seen, but I feel like Amber felt like they were pretty pushy, right?
Okay.
In terms of
Newi's parents are the most beautiful people in the world, and love them to bits. And I always say I lucked out on the parents-in-laws. Like, they are the best. But for our wedding, and I understand now, I think when we got married, I was maybe still a little fresh to the Asian culture. And I would probably do things different now that I know a bit more. But we wanted a pretty Aussie wedding in the sense of we wanted it really big.
And we didn't want
laid
it
back.
And we didn't want it to cost a fortune.
We didn't want it to cost a fortune because we wanted to go on a good
Yeah,
honeymoon.
we wanted to go on an awesome honeymoon.
And we were building a house.
Yes.
So for us, the wedding was not going to be a sit-down meal because that was so expensive for 150 people.
Yeah, that's big.
And most of the people coming were like our church friends and whatnot. So for us, it wasn't important to have like a sit-down seated wedding, but for Newi's parents being Asian, they felt that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And they did often, they did a few times try and bring us places that we should have our wedding, and they offered to upfront the cost and then we would pay them back, which was very lovely and generous, but we would still be paying back a heck of a lot of money.
And it's not what you wanted.
And it wasn't what we wanted. And it was both of us. We both didn't want it because, again, like Newi is very Aussie. He wasn't really that interested in following the traditions. So we had it pretty good, but they definitely, and still to this day, Dad shakes his head at our wedding. Because
our wedding's known as like the bad wedding in the family.
Newi's
All
family did
the
not
family
love
were like hungry, or they say they were hungry, and the food wasn't that good, and they didn't really get to sit down too
Nowhere to
much.
sit.
it.
So
We did actually give them tables. We had
we did.
a seat, like
The elders.
we
Yeah.
cut off half of it for them to have seats. So they all had their seats. But and like we had monks at our wedding, which were beautiful. We love them. Because Mum is Buddhist and she believed that her temple monks needed to be at our wedding.
Yep.
We were fine with that, like absolutely we love them. They're really beautiful, generous people. So we did kind of like, they did have
Compromise.
some
Yeah.
things that they wanted to input, but Newi was a really great solid partner to do it with
Yeah,
because he would say no,
Yeah.
which was good.
Yeah. So we got our stand-up wedding.
We got our stand-up wedding.
and it
with
didn't cost a
150
fortune.
people.
So, but
We went on the honeymoon.
cost
we
of that
wanted to.
was everyone thinks our wedding sucked. And
Yeah. And so many people didn't go to Andrew's and Shalom's wedding
because of ours.
Because
they
they thought
they
it'd
thought
be
they were
like
going to be
ours.
hungry or they
Did,
thought it'd be
did he
similar.
have to? Or did they
No,
have
he
to?
had a sit
He
down.
had a sit-down
They loved
wedding.
it.
Well, that's-
The family that went, they loved
Lost
it.
for them then. Eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that would be a funny thing to talk about. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like even with our wedding, so we had, so we got married in a church. Post the church, I don't know about you guys, but I always want to like hang around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's put on a lunch after the wedding ceremony.
Oh, wow.
That way we could invite more people and then kind of cull a little bit for the actual
Right. The expensive
dinner.
part.
So we did that, and then it turned out, so we're like, we'll just get some BMTs,
Yeah.
whatever, fruit platters. And then my mom was like, no, there's going to be older people there. We need to like properly cater this.
Yeah.
So it turned from what would have been like sandwiches and
Right.
into a full-on bloody buffet.
Yeah.
But other than that, like there wasn't too much pushback.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
there's always something, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There's
I
always
think-
something.
Yeah, Andy kind of got the brunt of it because, as you said, not many people
He
rocked
set
up to his
his own.
wedding, but even gifts, right? They kind of
Yeah.
give expecting a big meal,
Yeah.
and they kind of,
Silly.
well, that's kind of the Asian
You're there
culture,
to
right?
Wish the couple
Yeah.
their best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Andy didn't get as much as us
Yeah.
in terms of gifts, so
'Cause, yeah.
He,
they-
he can thank that. He can thank you guys for that one.
that was so bad.
In terms of traditions, and so we spoke about marriage, we spoke about weddings and things like that. For you guys, obviously being from a white family, Amber, and from a faux Asian family,
Yep.
What sort of traditions do you guys hope to carry on, if any?
I think Chinese New Year would probably be one.
For sure.
We all like getting
Yeah,
money,
we
so-
all love
For
that.
sure.
So I think, growing up, I loved getting money on Chinese New Year. So Haven's going to love the same thing. So I think that's one we will keep.
In terms of food, like,
I was gonna say food.
I know, like, just checking out your Instas, you guys eat quite a bit of it.
Yeah,
we eat a lot.
We
of
try to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to.
Newey does most of the cooking.
Yeah.
pho?
And it's yeah.
No, I
did the other day.
got the recipe, so I'm kind of like the family scribe, so I'm writing all the family recipes down so they're not lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, pho is like super hard. I would assume just because there's like so many spices and they're hard to buy when you're on the Sunshine Coast.
Yes.
If you're in Brisbane and Inala or Sunny Bank, it's super easy. But when when you're on the Sunshine Coast, it's pretty hard to get. So that's why I haven't really attempted it.
For you, Amber, as a mum, is it important for you to carry on? So obviously, Haven he's mixed.
Yeah.
Is it important to try and pass on, both aspects of each other to him?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And Haven will learn Vietnamese.
Oh, cool.
Newey is very insecure about his Vietnamese, so he
learn
refuses
with
to teach him.
Pretty much.
So in my, I've said he'll either need a Vietnamese tutor or Newey will need to teach him because I think that's very important to be able to communicate with his Ong Noi. And if he ever wants to live in Vietnam for a little bit, it's part of his culture. I think it's special to give him that, and it's good for his brain to be
The
bilingual.
language is hard. I guess I'm the youngest in the family, so my Vietnamese is the worst. My sister's the eldest, so she's got the better Vietnamese. It's still not great. And then my brother, he's better than me, but still not great either.
Yeah.
And I'm the youngest, so I've got the worst Vietnamese. And with language, it's you lose it if you don't use it.
Yeah. Of
So
course.
on the Sunshine Coast, there's not too many Vietnamese people. In Brisbane, it's different because there's Vietnamese culture here. And all the people that did grow up in Brisbane, they went to Vietnamese school, which we didn't. And so that's kind of the hard thing about.
Did you talk to your parents when you're growing up in English?
No, we spoke Vietnamese, so
Okay.
we did speak Vietnamese with them. But it kind of morphed into English Vietnamese, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of where it morphed, and it helped Dad as well, to learn English, because he was pretty bad, and Mum
Mum was good.
she was bad at English. She was terrible at
better than
English.
Dad.
No, Dad was way better.
Really?
Yeah, Dad was way better.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of, you know, we did grow up speaking Vietnamese, but at the same time, we would speak English more because we went to school and we had friends that were speaking English, and then when we're home, we would kind of, you know, we won't hone that skill.
And Dad's English is getting worse because he doesn't obviously have the kids at home anymore, and he really only speaks Vietnamese.
Yeah.
So, you know, the older Haven gets and the older Dad gets, it's going to be really hard for them to communicate if he doesn't learn at least basic Vietnamese.
Yeah. Well, it could be a good opportunity for you guys to learn as well.
I mean, I've always said I need to learn. And
Yeah. Alex is trying to put a bit of pressure on me too.
Oh, really?
Really?
But
She's good, eh? Because she went to school.
She always says she's no good, but she like exclusively speaks to her parents. So I was like, you must be okay then.
Wow, yeah, she's better than me. So everyone, like all the family friends, they're way better than me
Yeah.
because they went to Viet school, you know. So
See, I don't get that because Nui speaks to his dad in Vietnamese and it sounds
It must be good,
no,
right?
but there's English words in there. You can
Yeah, but only a few. Like,
Yeah.
I can't understand what you're talking about most
true.
of the time. So,
true.
So for you then, do you, I would say wish, but do you kind of look back and feel like it would have been cool if you had more of a Vietnamese influence
For sure.
in your life?
Yeah. I think as I'm growing up now, I do.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, it's sad. Like if Dad goes, like that's kind of, you know, that generation kind of dies off, right? And then it's on me, when my brother and sister, and his culture's kind of getting lost in the Australian culture.
Yep.
You know, so we do want to, and that's why I want to, like, you know, recipes or, you know, family history. It'd be good to understand it, just so Haven knows, you know, keeping that for the next generations.
Yeah.
So definitely, like, I wish I did practice Vietnamese a bit more, or, you know, get immersed in the culture and his history.
Yeah, there's a massive miss as well, like from our side, where like I went to Chinese school as a kid,
Oh yeah.
and I may as well have not have gone.
really,
So I've retained absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Wow.
And then we just never bothered, or my parents just never got around to putting us back in.
Yeah. Your
Right.
parents are really good at English.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
English is their first language.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah. So they should be.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as you say, then you grow older and you're like,
Yeah.
damn, I wish I had this other part
Yeah.
of my life that I could go
Yeah.
to.
For sure.
Would benefit me in so many ways. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I think like for us as well, like Alex is Vietnamese, I'm Chinese ancestry. So hopefully we can learn another language with the kids or something.
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
those lines.
2 languages maybe for
Yeah,
your
well,
kids.
I've got to learn English first.
Yeah.
2, 3. Yeah, that'll be
Yeah,
3.
And then, I guess just on that, hanging on to the traditions, you're right. Like you say, you know, if your dad goes, the recipes, the history, all the stories go with him,
Yep.
Which is kind of sad,
Yeah.
I think. And that's sort of why we're doing a podcast like this, where people can kind of look back and say, okay, well, this is where I came from.
Yep.
This is how it's all panned out.
Yep.
Bit of reflective therapy, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then now I suppose probably the most pressing, important part of your life is being parents.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's got its ups and downs,
Yep.
its struggles, but
Yep.
I would say, and you'd agree, way more ups than downs.
Yeah.
Not talking too much about that side of it, but for you guys with your parents, so Amber, you grew up in, you said, sort of a broken family. Were there any lessons that you guys took and you're like, this is how I definitely do or do not want to raise my children? Is there anything you guys can think of that the top of your head?
1, be a unified couple. So definitely have Haven grow up with 2 parents in the same house who are healthy and obviously invest in their relationship. We both don't drink alcohol. So I guess that would be something that we will instill in our kids growing up.
Yep.
Not that we're against alcohol, so they can drink alcohol when they get to a legal age, but I guess knowing their limits with it, it won't be something that will be like a curse on them. It'll be if they decide to drink alcohol because they enjoy it.
It'll be difficult, especially if you guys, like, say, Haven, for now, if he grows up, he doesn't see it around.
Yeah.
And also, I'm assuming, like you say, a lot of your friends don't drink. They're sort of third party influence is going to be lacking. So maybe that will work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. It's
We didn't have
very-
alcohol in my family, and I don't drink.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that could help. But for me, you know,
Yeah.
Because were you guys pushed as kids in terms of academics and things like that?
No, and I'm the baby of the family, so I'd say that I got the least discipline and like attention.
you got away
in
with
that
You're the
aspect.
youngest, right?
Yeah, I'm the youngest,
Yeah,
yeah.
me too. So
Yeah.
we can all agree and
Yeah, so
relate.
I feel like I'd like to instill academics in my kids more than I was. I think that's going to be an important factor for me. I'd like to do homework with my kids and make sure that they grow up educated well. And also sports. I grew up very sporty, so I want to instill sports in my kids as well because I think that's really healthy.
Yep.
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I wasn't pushed too much. Like, obviously, as Asian parents, they kind of want you to be doctors. So that
That'll
was
be
always
me.
there.
I
Doctors
want
or
you to be a
lawyers. Yeah. So
Do
that
whatever
was
you want, just the doctor.
yeah. It was either be a doctor or a lawyer or take over the Chinese restaurants. So slim pickings. But yeah, I wasn't super pushed with academics. But me and my brother didn't do really well in school, so we kind of hid our report cards because we'd get in trouble with what we got. But yeah, the main, I guess, thing that I would do differently, parenting wise, is I think communication was a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
With that whole hierarchy thing, there was a different relationship between your parents and yourself. And my parents rarely ever communicated, even in their marriage. Like I rarely ever saw them communicate or even show affection some people say that might be Asian culture.
Yep.
They're not super affectionate as Australians and so that was kind of difficult growing up. And the language thing didn't help. There was a language barrier, so it was hard to communicate how I was feeling, obviously when I was in my teenage years. The language barrier. And for me, that kind of taught me not to talk about my feelings and kind of bottle things up.
Yeah.
And that was obviously been hard in our marriage.
Yeah.
I'd love to we'd love to create a safe space where we can talk about anything.
Yeah.
Raising Haven. Nothing's like nothing's a topic that you can't talk about, right? And we want to communicate and how we're feeling or how he's feeling, or even try to help him communicate that. So I think that's like a big thing. And he can always confide in us no matter what. Like we're always going to love him.
Yeah.
No matter his mistakes or whatever he does, he can always come to us, and we want to encourage him to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A big one that's sort of come up every time is the love languages and how Asian parents show their love. I don't even know what all five are, but I know a couple of them. But for you, and then I really don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said, mum and dad were busy with the restaurant. You had to, there's a lot of times you guys had to sort of take care of yourselves and things like that. Is that something as well that you want to make sure time-wise that you're going to give them the quality time?
For sure. Like I could see, like, and I'm always grateful for what my parents have done, because I understand, hey, they came from nothing and they had to work hard. They were forced to work hard to give us the best life, and I could see how generous they were with their money and, working hard. And so that's a positive side to it. But at the same time, I could see, hey, it did affect us, and it was hard because we didn't get to spend as much time with them. So, we're trying to obviously set ourselves up to not be forced to work, and even now, like when we're working, we want to spend heaps of time with family, and I'm working hybrid work, and it's great because I get to go to work, and then, spend time with family at the same time. So that's definitely been a priority for us.
Yeah, I think the best thing to come out of COVID is that hybrid working situation. Sure. Like, I'm home 3 days a week. Lets me, if I go to take Olivia to daycare, things like that, I can do it.
Yep.
And it's not sort of getting too muddy with the work stuff. So
Yeah. And we work hard so that, like, I can be a stay-at-home mum. Like, Nui works really hard so that can stay our life. And my mum was that. Like my mum stayed home, and I remember always having her there, which was like really special when you're growing up to know that at least one of your parents is always there, like cooking you food after you get home from school or picking you up from school so you don't have to catch the bus, or, you know, little things like that. I know that I want to be able to give my kids and to be around.
Well, he's very lucky at the moment to have you around. Yeah. Good job, man. Keep it up. Keep
I'll
doing
try.
keep doing what you're doing. I don't know how you're doing it, but it's the ideal.
Yeah.
It's the
even
ideal.
doesn't
If
have
it
to be a mum, but
works,
someone can be there.
Yeah.
And they just know that that quality time is more important than chasing money.
That's it.
I think like that's for us. Like my mom was fortunately home most of our lives.
Oh, wow. That's
And
awesome.
she could have worked. She could have done whatever she wanted. But
Yeah.
we knew that she wanted to be there when shit went to pieces or whatever. She was there for us. So
Yeah. For sure.
And then what's next for you guys then? So, anything that you guys are working on? Like I said at the start, you got a really cool page, couple of pages actually.
Yeah.
How do you find that side of things, the content creation? You enjoying that journey? And
I am. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship because I'm not very disciplined. And I guess with social media, you have to be very disciplined. So there's sometimes where I go through and I'm loving it and I really enjoy it. So like travel content, I really love.
yeah,
You know, that's an easy one to love. But the everyday life, I am a stay-at-home mum, which is so good, but I don't do anything that exciting. I go to a park every day, you know? So I find it really hard sometimes to get content out because my everyday life as a stay-at-home mum isn't always glamorous, and I try and keep, you know, the stay-at-home mum content off that page because the reason it started was I needed a creative outlet that was outside of being a mum because I was drowning. You know, it was just a lot and I felt not me. I didn't feel good in my skin, in who I was, in what I was doing. And we just moved into our new house and knew it was like to start a page and just do something creative that has no pressure. And I've probably taken the no pressure thing a little too seriously. And I should probably now start to put a bit of pressure on me because I want it to build into something, I think. And it has built into something without me even having to try, which is really cool. So yeah, it's a creative outlet for me outside of being a mum. And I'm just kind of working out how I go.
some more of that. Anything for you, man?
Yeah.
Working on anything?
Obviously want to, have another kid. So
Yeah, that too.
that'd be a priority. But yeah, I think it's just, being a parent kind of consumes your life, right? So that's kind of the main focus, like, really enjoying time with Haven now before he goes to school. And work kind of allows me to do that. So, we'd love to, I guess, in the next 10 years, we'd love to invest in property and retire in 10 years. I think that's kind of the goal. So I'm trying to, I guess, work really hard now to allow us to do that and obviously travel. That'd be amazing to travel a bit more too. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys have done a few like longer trips with Haven here.
We've only
We just did Korea.
We did
South
Korea.
Korea. So, and that was only 2 weeks or something.
3
was it?
3 weeks.
Was it 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doable?
That was Korea's great, but they're not really kid friendly.
Yep.
It was really hard at his age, especially because
Haven was great.
he was great, but
It's just
at his age, because we took the pram, and he wasn't walking
too much.
Like he was walking and he was playing, but he didn't really want to walk places, and so it was hard because Korea, there's not too many like pram access or even wheelchair access, so it was hard to take prams anywhere, and
Everything's built on stairs.
Yeah. Right.
To get into any restaurant, you go up or downstairs.
Yeah, that would have got old pretty quickly.
It was hard.
Yeah, it was tough.
It was tough.
But it was amazing.
And then, like, at the same time, like nightlife, right? In Korea, nothing really
everything.
opens after, or everything opens at like 11 a.m. and then closes at like midnight or even later than
Like
that.
2 a.m.
Yeah. And so, obviously with Haven's sleep schedule, he's in bed at 6:30. So we kind of didn't really enjoy
The
too much of the
nightlife.
nightlife.
Might have to take a willing friend or
Yeah.
grandparents.
Take
Yeah.
grandparents
Be
for
the
sure.
We've definitely thought about grandparents on the next trip.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, guys. Well, I'm just gonna wrap it up. There's sort of a rapid fire, but it's not really that rapid. Whatever comes to mind, both of you can take it at the same time. So, who do you guys go to when you need advice? And besides each other?
I don't go to Amber for advice.
Yeah, he does not go to me for advice.
Well, that takes that out.
Yeah.
Try and give him advice, it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
I go to I go to Shalom, my sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'd go to my best friend,
Sammy.
Sammy T.
What is your biggest priorities at the moment?
Haven.
Yeah. I'd say the same. Like, serving church and doing family life, and they're the biggest priorities at the moment.
Yeah, fair. For each of you, what's your greatest accomplishments?
Haven.
Haven aside.
Greatest accomplishment would be growing through the traumas we've gone through in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been an easy 5 years, but we've come out stronger.
Yeah, for sure. Greatest accomplishment. I would say, serving at church has allowed me to really invest in people's lives, and I think seeing people grow into what God's called them to do. I've been fortunate enough to see that. So I would say that's my greatest accomplishment at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. And again, it's cool because I like hearing it, and then when it's not really about yourself,
Yeah.
that's the best to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If money didn't matter, what would your dream jobs be?
Ooh. If money didn't
Dream job.
stay at
I
home.
don't know. I feel like I love filming travel videos. So I actually love, like, I do filming. But in terms of like corporate and wedding stuff, I'm not really that passionate. But I actually do love travel videos and filming that. So, if money was an issue, we'd be traveling around the world, right?
Yeah.
Just filming things.
Yeah.
So
That's fairly common.
Yeah.
Which I would do too.
yeah.
Describe each other in 3 words, if you can.
I would say caring, loving, and nurturing.
Ooh.
Nice.
She's a
That was a
nurturer.
question mark on
Yeah,
that.
nurturing.
Would
You're
you
a nurturer.
agree with those, Amber?
Loving, caring, nurturing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all very positive.
I guess so. I would hope so. I would say providing, generous, and
Sexy.
That's a given, man.
providing, generous, and loyal.
Nice.
Nice.
Thanks, babe.
Agree with all those?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, take them.
What's one thing you guys would change about yourselves? Doesn't have to be physically, can be physically.
Yeah. I think I'd go back. I kind of go back to the communication thing, right? Like, and that's something that I'm still learning, you know, to communicate how I'm feeling. And I know it does, it is hard and it weighs on Amber a lot if I don't communicate things. So that's something that I'd probably keep changing or trying to grow in, is to communicate more.
Yeah, that's good.
I think something that is always on my mind to grow in is my emotions. I'm a very emotional person, and I don't know, like I would change that and just be a little bit more level-headed. But I think I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're conscious that
Yeah, I'm very
it's
conscious
something
of
you need
it.
to work on. Other than the opposite, where people's like, I'm not emotional at all.
She's conscious, people like bring it up all the time.
Yeah, like, I mean, when I say we're polar opposites, we're polar opposites.
Yeah, we're polar
No
opposites.
emotion. So we kind of are starting to level each other out.
Yeah. And that's what, that's what marriage and finding a partner is about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that compromise.
Yeah.
What do you guys do to relax then?
I love watching movies, so I can just, watch, 3 or 4 movies a day.
Do you comedy, action, it doesn't matter?
Action for sure.
Yep.
I watch Korean dramas.
Yeah.
They make me feel good.
Yeah.
And then the last one is, when was the last time you guys tried something new?
Ooh, that's a good question. Try something new. What?
I was going to say you got a new haircut, but not really.
Yeah, new haircut, I guess.
Not really.
Yeah.
Tried
think of anything.
something
What did we
new.
try?
So you guys fairly creatures of habit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say we are. Yeah, for sure. Kind of in a
Yeah.
routine, I guess, and I would say because of Haven.
Yeah.
So we're kind of in a routine with him, and so we're pretty safe.
We're pretty safe people, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, just like to add on to that, what do you guys do for yourselves, like about just a release from Haven? I guess like tonight, but to go into that, but
Yeah.
do you guys make time for each other? Is that something you guys consciously do?
I get, we don't we'd love to have date night each week, right? But we haven't really prioritized that. I think our time that we do spend is when he does go to sleep, and we're super fortunate that he does go to sleep at 6:30.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So we're super blessed there, and I know a lot of parents aren't as lucky as we are, so we don't take that for granted. And so that's kind of our time, right? We would probably would have dinner together every night, and we'd either put on a show, put on a few episodes or something, and just sit down and relax and spend time together.
Yeah. So every night's date night.
Kind of thing, yeah.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
we
is.
are super
We're
lucky.
very lucky
Yeah.
that we always have dinner together. That's something that we instill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. When you've got your chef, your cooking background, so
So gotta
Yeah,
cook.
very lucky.
see whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
No, guys. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing everything. I think the cool things for me is obviously your journey from when you guys met to now. I think it'd be cool for you guys to look back at it and just reflect a little bit about how lucky you guys are.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the theme for me, and maybe it's coming through, is that a lot of us do prioritize different things.
Yeah.
And we need to get a bit of perspective as to what's actually important, why are we doing things, and life is so short. So, you really got to make the most of it, and sounds like you guys are doing that. So
For sure.
Trying.
Yeah, we're trying.
it's easy. Well, thanks again, and check you guys out on Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks
mate.
for having
No worries.
us.
Cheers.